Prolog. And your nervous system decides what you can afford before your mind has a chance to think. The amygdala fires. The prefrontal cortex shuts down. Dopamine floods the nucleus accumbens. And you buy what you cannot keep, avoid what you need, and repeat the pattern until poverty becomes your body's default state. This is not a money problem. This is a regulation problem. Introduction. Money does not behave the way you think it does. You believe financial success is about knowledge, about discipline, about willpower. But those are secondary. Money responds to something deeper, something you cannot see but can feel in your chest when you are about to spend, in your stomach when you see your account balance, in your throat when someone asks you about your finances. Money responds to your nervous system, to the part of you that operates below thought, below intention, below conscious control. And if your nervous system is not trained, your money will never stay. It will slip through your hands no matter how much you earn, no matter how much you understand, no matter how hard you try. This is not about budgets. This is not about strategies. This is about the machinery inside you that makes decisions before you are aware you are making them. The machinery that reacts to stress with spending, that reacts to uncertainty with avoidance, that reacts to fear with paralysis or impulse. Your financial life is not a reflection of your intelligence. It is a reflection of your regulation. And regulation is not something you are born with. It is something you train or fail to train. And that failure costs you everything. This audiobook will show you the mechanics, how your brain creates poverty, how your body reinforces it, how your emotional patterns drain wealth before it has a chance to accumulate, and most importantly, how to retrain the system so that calm replaces chaos, so that control replaces reaction, so that wealth becomes the output of a regulated nervous system instead of the dream of an exhausted one. This is not theory. This is mechanics. And once you see the mechanics, you cannot unsee them. You will recognize every financial mistake as a nervous system failure, every poor decision as a regulation collapse, and every path to wealth as a training problem, not a knowledge problem. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Money does not respond to logic. It responds to regulation. There is a woman named Priya who earns well. She understands finance. She knows she should save. She has read the books. She has made the plans. But every month the money disappears, not to large purchases, to small ones. A meal here, a subscription there, a convenience purchase, an impulse click. She cannot explain it. She is not reckless. She is not careless. But her account never grows. And every time she tries to change, the pattern repeats within days. This is not a discipline problem. This is a nervous system problem. When Priya feels stressed, her body does something she cannot see. Her amygdala, the part of her brain that detects threat, becomes active. This activation sends a signal. The signal says something is wrong. Fix it now. Her prefrontal cortex, the part that plans and thinks long-term, starts to shut down. Blood flow reduces, rational thought weakens, and in that moment her brain is no longer thinking about her future. It is only thinking about immediate relief. So she spends, not because she wants to. Because her nervous system is seeking regulation, it is trying to return to calm. And spending for a brief moment provides that calm. The dopamine hits, the tension drops, the threat feeling fades. But the relief is temporary, and the pattern is permanent, because she has trained her nervous system to regulate through spending. And once a pattern is trained, it operates automatically, without thought, without choice. This is the mechanism most people never see. They think spending is a decision, but it is not. It is a response, a conditioned response to a dysregulated state. Here is how it works in your body. When you feel financial stress, your sympathetic nervous system activates. This is the system responsible for fight or flight. Your heart rate increases, your breathing shallows. Cortisol, the stress hormone, floods your bloodstream. In this state, your brain prioritizes survival. It does not care about long-term wealth. It cares about reducing the immediate threat. And if spending has ever reduced that threat before, even temporarily, your brain will push you to spend again. This is not weakness, this is biology. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was trained to do. The problem is, it was trained wrong. Let me give you another example. A man named Arjun avoids looking at his bank account. He knows he should check it. He knows avoidance makes things worse. But every time he thinks about opening the app, his chest tightens. His stomach churns. His body sends a clear signal. Do not look. So he does not. And the avoidance continues. Bills go unpaid. Overdrafts accumulate. Problems grow. Not because he does not care, because his nervous system has associated financial information with threat, and his body is protecting him from that threat the only way it knows how: by avoiding it. This is dysregulation. His body is reacting to a number on a screen as if it were a physical danger. And because the reaction is physical, logical thinking cannot override it. He can tell himself it is just a number. He can remind himself that avoidance makes it worse. But his body does not listen. It responds to the signal. And the signal says, danger. This is why financial advice fails. Because it speaks to the prefrontal cortex. It appeals to logic, to reason, to long-term thinking. But financial behavior is not controlled by that part of the brain. It is controlled by the limbic system, the emotional brain, the part that operates below thought. And the limbic system does not respond to logic. It responds to safety, to regulation, to the signals your body sends about whether you are okay or not. Here is the truth most people never hear. You cannot logic your way out of financial chaos. You can only regulate your way out. Regulation is the ability to manage your internal state without external fixes. It is the ability to feel stress without spending, to feel fear without avoiding, to feel uncertainty without impulsing. Most people do not have this ability, not because they are broken, because they were never taught. Regulation is a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained. Here is what untrained regulation looks like. You feel bored. Your body seeks stimulation. You open a shopping app. You scroll. You buy something you do not need. Not because you wanted it, because your nervous system needed activation. And buying provided it. You feel anxious about money. Your body seeks relief. You avoid checking your balance. You distract yourself. You tell yourself you will deal with it later. Not because you are lazy, because your nervous system is protecting you from discomfort, and avoidance is its tool. You feel deprived. You have been careful with money. You have restricted yourself. Your body feels the restriction as scarcity. And scarcity triggers a survival response, so you spend, you binge, you reward yourself not because you lack discipline, because your nervous system is trying to escape the feeling of deprivation. All of this is regulation failure, and regulation failure is expensive. Here's the shift you need to understand. Money is not a math problem, it is a nervous system problem, and until you train your nervous system to handle financial discomfort without reacting, your financial behavior will not change. You can know all the right strategies, you can have the perfect plan, but if your body is dysregulated, the plan will fail, because your body will override the plan every single time. Let me show you how to begin training regulation. The next time you feel the urge to spend impulsively, do not act, do not distract, do not avoid the feeling. Just stop. Sit with it. Feel where the urge lives in your body. Is it in your chest, your stomach, your throat? Notice it, do not judge it, do not try to make it go away, just observe it. This is called interoception, the ability to sense your internal state. Most people skip this step. They feel the urge and immediately act, or they feel the urge and immediately distract. But neither of those responses train regulation. They train reactivity. When you stop and observe, you are training something different. You are training your nervous system to tolerate discomfort without fixing it. And that tolerance is the foundation of financial control. Here is what happens when you practice this. At first, the urge will feel overwhelming. Your body will insist that you must act, that you cannot sit with this feeling, that it is unbearable. But if you stay with it, something changes. The urge peaks, and then it fades. Not because you fixed it, because it passed on its own. Because urges are temporary. They rise, they fall. They do not require action. This is the training. Every time you sit with an urge without acting, you are teaching your nervous system that spending is not the only way to regulate. That discomfort can be tolerated. That you are safe even when you feel the urge and do not obey it. This is not willpower, this is regulation. And regulation is what allows money to stay. Let me give you one more example. A woman named Kavya used to spend every time she felt lonely. She did not recognize the pattern, she just knew that when she was alone she would browse online, and browsing always led to buying. One day she tried something different. She felt the loneliness. She felt the urge to shop. But instead of opening the app, she sat with the feeling. She noticed her chest felt tight. Her breath felt shallow. Her hands wanted to move. She did not fix any of it. She just noticed. And after a few minutes, the urge softened. The loneliness was still there, but the compulsion to spend was gone. Over weeks of practicing this, her spending dropped. Not because she restricted herself, because her nervous system learned a new response. It learned that loneliness did not require spending, that the feeling could exist without needing to be fixed. This is the path. Not more knowledge, not more strategies. Just training. Training your body to regulate without spending. Training your nervous system to stay calm under financial pressure. Training yourself to feel discomfort without reacting. Because money does not obey logic, it obeys regulation. And the moment you begin regulating your internal state, your financial behavior will shift automatically. Not through effort, through training. That training starts now, with one urge, one pause, one moment of sitting with discomfort instead of running from it. That moment is everything. And it is the only place real financial change begins. Chapter 2. The Untrained Nervous System and Financial Chaos. There is a pattern you repeat without knowing you are repeating it. You earn money. You feel temporary relief. Then the money disappears, not to one large expense, to dozens of small decisions that felt right in the moment but wrong in hindsight. You tell yourself you will do better next time. You promise you will track your spending. You commit to saving first. But when the next paycheck arrives, the same pattern unfolds, the same leaks, the same unexplained drain. This is not a failure of intention. This is the output of an untrained nervous system. An untrained nervous system operates on autopilot. It reacts to stimuli without filtering. It seeks immediate relief without considering consequence. It prioritizes short-term regulation over long-term stability. And in a world designed to exploit that reactivity, an untrained nervous system will always lose money. Here is how it works. Your nervous system has two primary modes, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is activation, alertness, readiness, fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest, calm, digestion, recovery. A healthy nervous system moves fluidly between these states. It activates when needed. It calms when safe. It does not get stuck in either extreme. But most people are stuck in chronic sympathetic activation, stuck in a state of low-grade stress that never fully resolves. and that state creates financial chaos. Let me show you what chronic activation does to spending. When your sympathetic nervous system is chronically active, your brain perceives the world as threatening. Not consciously, subtly. A background hum of danger that never quite goes away. In this state, your brain prioritizes immediate needs. It discounts the future, it seeks quick rewards, it craves relief. So you spend on comfort, on convenience, on anything that temporarily reduces the activation. A meal delivered instead of cooked, a purchase that distracts. A subscription that promises ease. Each purchase provides a momentary drop in activation, a brief return to calm, and your brain registers that drop as success, as proof that spending works. So the pattern strengthens. Every time you spend and feel relief, you train your nervous system to seek spending as a regulation tool. And over time, spending becomes your primary method of managing stress. This is not about lack of discipline. This is conditioning. And conditioning operates below conscious thought. Let me give you a real example. A man named Ravi worked in a high-stress job. Long hours, tight deadlines, constant pressure. His body was in sympathetic activation for most of the day. And when he came home, the activation did not stop. It just shifted. He would open shopping apps, not because he needed anything, because scrolling and buying reduced the activation. The small dopamine hits from adding items to a cart, the brief satisfaction of completing a purchase, the distraction from the tension in his body. Within months, he had accumulated debt, not from large purchases, from hundreds of small ones. Each one felt minor in the moment, but together they represented thousands. When he looked back, he could not explain why he bought most of the items. He did not need them. He did not even want them. But in the moment, his body needed something, and spending was the easiest regulation tool available. This is untrained nervous system spending. It is not about the object. It is about the internal state. And if you do not have tools to regulate that state without spending, you will keep spending, no matter how much you understand, no matter how much you want to stop. Here is another pattern: avoidance spending. When your nervous system is chronically activated, certain tasks feel unbearable. Not because they are difficult, because they trigger more activation. And your body resists anything that increases threat, so you avoid. You avoid looking at bills. You avoid checking your balance. You avoid making the budget. You avoid confronting debt. And because avoidance creates guilt, your nervous system seeks relief from that guilt. So you spend. You reward yourself for enduring the discomfort. You distract yourself from the shame. You temporarily escape the feeling of being behind. But the spending makes the avoidance worse. Now there is more to avoid. More bills, more imbalance, more debt, and the cycle tightens. Let me tell you about a woman named Ananya. Ananya avoided her credit card statements. She knew she had debt. She knew it was growing. But every time she thought about opening the statement, her chest would tighten. Her breathing would shallow. Her body would scream, "Do not look." So she did not. And to manage the anxiety from not looking, she would spend on small comforts. Coffee, meals out, little treats, things that made her feel better for a few minutes. But each purchase added to the balance she was avoiding, and the more the balance grew, the harder it became to look. Her nervous system had created a loop. Avoidance triggered anxiety. Anxiety triggered spending. Spending increased debt. Debt reinforced avoidance. This loop is not broken by willpower. It is broken by nervous system training, by teaching the body that looking at a number does not create danger. That discomfort can be tolerated. That activation can reduce without spending. Here is what an untrained nervous system looks like in financial decisions. You make decisions based on how you feel in the moment. If you feel good, you spend. If you feel bad, you spend. If you feel bored, you spend. If you feel stressed, you spend. Every emotional state leads to the same behavior because your nervous system only knows one regulation tool. You cannot delay gratification, not because you lack discipline, because your nervous system perceives delay as deprivation, and deprivation triggers a scarcity response. A fear that if you do not get it now, you will never get it. So you act immediately. You take the reward now. You sacrifice the future for the present. You react to financial information with emotion instead of strategy. A bill arrives and your body floods with cortisol. A balance notification appears and your stomach drops. A purchase reminder triggers shame. Every interaction with money is filtered through emotional reactivity instead of calm assessment. You cannot sit with discomfort. The moment you feel financial tension, you move. You spend to escape it. You avoid to ignore it. You distract to forget it. But you never sit with it. Never let it exist without reacting. And because you never sit with it, you never train tolerance. And without tolerance, the reactivity continues. This is the cost of an untrained nervous system. It turns every financial interaction into an emotional event. And emotional events drain money. Here is the shift you need to make. You need to train your nervous system to stay calm under financial pressure, to feel discomfort without reacting, to tolerate activation without seeking immediate relief. This is not about mindset. This is about physiology, about training your body to regulate itself without external inputs, without spending, without avoidance, without distraction. Here is how you begin. The next time you feel financial stress, do not act. Do not spend. Do not avoid. Do not distract. Just breathe. Slow your breath. Inhale for 4 counts. Exhale for 6 counts. Repeat for 2 minutes. This is not relaxation. This is nervous system training. Long exhales activate the parasympathetic nervous system. They signal to your body that you are safe, that the activation can reduce, that there is no threat requiring immediate action. At first, your body will resist. It will insist that you must do something, that breathing will not solve the problem, but you are not trying to solve the problem. You are trying to regulate your response to the problem, and regulation happens in the body, not in the mind. Here is what happens when you practice this consistently. Your baseline activation lowers. You stop living in chronic stress. Your body begins to trust that calm is possible, that safety is available, that activation does not need to be permanent. And when your baseline lowers, your financial behavior changes. You stop reaching for spending as a regulation tool. You stop avoiding as a protection mechanism. You start making decisions from calm instead of from reactivity. This is not instant. This is training. And training takes repetition. But every time you choose breath over reaction, you are installing a new pattern. A pattern where money is managed by a regulated nervous system instead of a chaotic one. Let me give you one more example. A man named Samir used to panic every time an unexpected expense appeared. His body would flood with cortisol. His mind would race. His hands would shake. And in that state, he would make terrible decisions. He would borrow. He would use credit. He would create long-term problems to solve short-term panic. Then he started training regulation. Every time he felt the panic, he would stop. He would breathe. He would feel the panic in his body without acting on it. And after a few minutes, the panic would reduce, not disappear, but reduce enough that he could think. Over months, his financial life stabilized, not because he earned more, because he stopped making decisions from panic. He stopped letting his untrained nervous system control his money. He started operating from regulation, and regulation creates completely different outcomes. This is the path. Not more knowledge, not more strategies, just training. Training your nervous system to handle financial reality without collapsing into reactivity. Because an untrained nervous system will always create financial chaos, no matter how much you earn. No matter how much you know. The chaos is not about circumstances, it is about regulation. And the moment you begin regulating, the chaos stops. Not because the circumstances changed, because your response to them changed. And your response is the only thing that determines whether money stays or goes. Train the nervous system. Everything else follows. Chapter 3, Limbic Hijack and Impulse Spending. There is a moment you rarely notice. The half-second between seeing something you want and deciding it is already yours. In that space, there is no spreadsheet, no long-term plan, no future self. There is only a rush in your chest, a pull in your stomach, and a quiet thought that says, "I will figure it out later." In that half-second, your limbic system has already made the decision. The limbic system is the emotional center of your brain. It includes structures like the amygdala, hippocampus, and nucleus accumbens. It evolved to keep you alive by reacting quickly to threat and opportunity. It does not calculate. It does not plan. It does not care about retirement. It cares about now. When the limbic system takes over and bypasses your rational brain, it is called a limbic hijack. In a hijack, the emotional brain seizes control before the thinking brain can participate. And in modern life, one of the easiest triggers for that hijack is money. Let me show you how this looks in real life. A man named Dev walks past a store after a difficult day. He is drained. His shoulders are tight. There is a low hum of irritation in his body. In the window, he sees a gadget he has wanted for months. It is on sale, limited time, last units. His heart rate spikes slightly. His breath becomes shallow. The nucleus accumbens, the reward center, lights up. The amygdala registers the opportunity as urgent. Get it now or lose it. In that state, his prefrontal cortex, the part of his brain that handles planning and consequences, goes quiet. It is still there, but its voice is drowned out. The limbic system speaks first. "I deserve this. What if it sells out? I have had such a hard week." These thoughts feel rational. They are not. They are rational-sounding justifications generated by the emotional brain to support its decision. Seconds later, the card is out. The purchase is complete. The body relaxes. Dopamine hits. A wave of relief moves through his nervous system. This feels like a choice. It was not. It was a hijack. Here is the mechanism. When you encounter a stimulus that promises relief, status, pleasure, or escape, your limbic system reacts faster than your prefrontal cortex. Faster than conscious thought, in milliseconds. The amygdala scans for emotional salience. Is this exciting? Is this threatening? Is this rewarding? If the answer is yes, it signals downstream systems. Dopamine pathways engage. The body prepares for action. Heart rate shifts. Attention narrows to the object. Alternative options fade into the background. In this tunnel of focus, long-term consequences disappear. The limbic system treats the opportunity as if it were a piece of food in a scarce environment. If it is here now, your ancient wiring assumes it might not be here later. So it pushes you to act. Not later. Now. This is impulse spending at the level of circuits, not character. Let me give you another example. A woman named Sana scrolls through her phone late at night. She feels empty, a little restless. The day did not go as planned. She is tired but not ready to sleep. An ad appears. Limited offer. Flash sale. Just for you. Her thumb hesitates for a fraction of a second, then taps. Inside the shopping app, everything is engineered to talk directly to her limbic system. Bright colors, scarcity labels, social proof. People also bought. Only 3 left. Her body responds before her mind does. There is a subtle buzz in her chest, a slight quickening of breath. She feels alive for the first time that day. Add to cart. In that moment, she is not buying an object. She is buying a nervous system state, a small uptick in dopamine, a brief escape from the heaviness in her body. The next morning, when the package is on the way and the bank notification appears, her prefrontal cortex wakes up. Why did I buy that? What was I thinking? But thinking was never really involved. The hijack did its job. The impulse was executed. The consequence arrived later. This pattern is not random. It is structured. It is based on how your brain and body process threat and reward. Here is what happens in a limbic hijack during spending. First, there is an internal state: stress, boredom, loneliness, frustration, depletion. The body is dysregulated. The nervous system is seeking balance. Then, there is a cue, a sale, a notification, a display, an invitation, something that promises relief or reward. The limbic system attaches to the cue. It exaggerates its emotional relevance. This matters. This is urgent. This will change how you feel. Finally, there is the action, the purchase, the swipe, the click, the commitment. After the action, the body receives dopamine and relief. The nervous system momentarily calms, and the brain quietly stores the sequence away as a successful pattern. Stress plus cue plus spending equals relief. The next time stress appears, the pattern will trigger faster. This is conditioning, classical and operant. Your limbic system is learning, and what it is learning is that money is a tool for state change. Not for security, not for stability, not for growth, for regulation. As long as that pattern exists, impulse spending will make sense to your nervous system even if it makes no sense to your logical mind. Here is the subtle part. The hijack does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it is loud, heart racing, palms sweating, a rush of urgency. But often it is quiet, just a soft pull toward the purchase, a light numbness that buying briefly pierces, a fog that spending cuts through for a moment. The nervous system is not always screaming. Sometimes it whispers. But even the whisper can override your plans if you do not recognize it. Notice how this plays out in everyday life. You go to the grocery store with a list. At the checkout, small items crowd the counter. Snacks, drinks, little conveniences. Your list is finished. But your nervous system sees new stimuli. You are tired from navigating the aisles. Your self-control is already depleted. Your glucose is lower. Your brain is not operating at full capacity. The limbic system sees sugar, caffeine, salt, quick energy, fast reward. Add one, then another. The total barely changes in the moment, but over weeks those minor hijacks become patterns that quietly pull money away from your goals. You pass a coffee shop on a stressful morning. The smell hits you, warm, comforting. Your body remembers previous pairings. Coffee plus sugar plus break equals nervous system relief. You know you could make coffee at home. You know the cost difference. But in that moment, the limbic association is louder than the logic. You step inside. None of this is about intelligence. It is about speed. The limbic system moves faster than logic. It plays the opening move. Logic arrives late and writes the story afterward. What did you tell yourself the last time you impulse spent? I needed a treat. It was on sale. It was just this once. These are scripts. Narratives the cortex creates to make sense of an emotional decision that has already been made. The story is not the cause. The story is the cover. There is a question that changes how you see this. The last time I bought something I did not plan, what was my body feeling right before I decided? Not what you were thinking, what you were feeling. Tightness, restlessness, emptiness, numbness, pressure, a sense of low-level threat. Impulse spending is a nervous system trying to regulate itself with external tools. The mechanism is mechanical: threat signal, limbic activation, reward pathway, action. If the mechanism is mechanical, punishment and shame do not fix it. They make it worse. Shame is a powerful limbic trigger. When you criticize yourself harshly after impulse spending, your nervous system receives another dose of threat, another surge of cortisol, another reason to seek relief. And how does your system already know how to get relief? The same way it got relief last time, by spending. So shame does not break the pattern, it closes the loop. There is another pattern inside the hijack. The role of anticipation. Neuroscience studies show that dopamine spikes not just at the moment of reward, but in anticipation of it. The moment you decide you will buy the thing, your brain begins to release dopamine. The reward is not only in receiving the object, it is in expecting it, planning it, moving toward it. This is why sometimes you lose interest in what you bought as soon as it arrives. The nervous system already received most of its reward during the anticipation phase. The object itself is almost irrelevant. The limbic system was never chasing the item, it was chasing the state shift, the internal change, the feeling. Where does that leave logic? Logic lives in the prefrontal cortex. It is slower, it is deliberate. It can override limbic impulses, but only if there is time and space to engage it. In a hijack, time and space vanish. Everything compresses into now. The emotional brain accelerates the process so the thinking brain cannot interrupt it. If the limbic system is winning because of speed, what interrupts speed? Not more information, not more lectures, not more self-criticism. A pause. A pause is not a moral decision. It is a mechanical insertion. A wedge you place between stimulus and response, a wedge big enough for the prefrontal cortex to step into. But even a pause is not a command, it is a sensation. The next time the urge hits, what would happen if instead of asking, "Should I buy this?" you asked, "What is my body doing right now?" You notice your breathing, your chest, your jaw, your hands. You name it quietly. My chest is tight, my breath is shallow, my stomach feels hollow. You do not forbid the purchase. You do not negotiate with yourself. You just bring the thinking brain online by paying attention. In that moment of attention, the speed drops. The limbic train slows enough for another part of you to step on board. From that position, another question becomes possible. If I buy this, what problem in my body am I trying to solve? Loneliness, exhaustion, boredom, anger, uncertainty? The object in front of you is rarely the real object. The real object is regulation. The thing you are trying to purchase is a change in your internal state. How else could that state change? A short walk, cold water on your face, 3 minutes of slow exhale breathing, a text to someone you trust, writing down the feeling. None of these are commands, they are alternatives. Other ways for your nervous system to exit the state it is in. Impulse spending is the nervous system choosing the fastest exit it knows. Training is teaching it slower exits that do less damage. There is a simple nervous system exercise that begins this training. Call it the 30-second trace. The next time you feel the impulse to buy something unplanned, do not stop yourself. Do not promise not to buy. Make no rule about the purchase itself. Just add one requirement. Before acting, stand still for 30 seconds. During those 30 seconds, trace your impulse through your body. Where is it strongest? What temperature does it feel like? Does it move or stay still? Is it sharp, dull, buzzing, heavy? For 30 seconds, your only job is to observe the impulse as a physical event, not as a command. Then, after 30 seconds, if you still want to buy, buy. No self-attack, no heroics, no rules. Why 30 seconds? Because 30 seconds is enough time for the prefrontal cortex to wake up. Enough time for the adrenaline spike to level slightly. Enough time for the automatic sequence to lose a little of its grip. Sometimes you will still buy. Sometimes you will not. The outcome is not the training. The observation is. Each time you trace instead of obeying instantly, you send a new message through your nervous system. Impulse is not an emergency. Urge is not an order. Feeling is not fate. Over time, the limbic hijack still triggers, but the hijack meets a system that has another move. A system that has felt the wave without drowning in it. A system that knows it can remain upright. This is not self-control in the moral sense. It is capacity. Capacity to stay present with activation without handing your wallet to the most frightened part of your brain. Impulse spending did not begin as a money habit. It began as a survival habit. A way your nervous system found to shift out of states it did not know how to stay in. When the limbic system hijacks your finances, it is trying to save you from something. From feeling too much, from feeling too little, from feeling alone inside your own body. Seeing that does not excuse the damage, but it explains the mechanism. If poverty is a learned pattern in the nervous system, then every traced impulse is unlearning. Every 30-second pause is one small untraining of the hijack. Logic can write the plan. Only regulation can execute it. The limbic system will still speak. It was built to. But slowly, with practice, its voice stops being the only one you can hear. Chapter 4. Dopamine Misallocation and False Rewards. There is a strange thing that happens when money enters your life. Your brain does not ask, how can this create long-term safety? It asks, how can this change how I feel right now? The gap between those two questions is dopamine. Dopamine is not pleasure, it is pursuit. It is the chemical that marks certain actions as important and worth repeating. It does not care whether those actions build wealth or destroy it. It only cares that they shift your internal state. When dopamine is allocated toward the wrong behaviors, money becomes a tool for chasing false rewards. Brief spikes of excitement, short bursts of relief, tiny hits of status. None of which leave you safer than before. This is dopamine misallocation, and it is one of the core reasons your nervous system keeps choosing financial moves that feel good and harm you. Picture a simple scene. A notification appears on your phone. Cashback offer. Limited time. Double rewards if you spend today. Before you even read the full message, your brain has already released a small amount of dopamine. Not because you received money. Because you might. Because there is a possibility of gain. Dopamine spikes in anticipation, not just in reward. Your attention narrows. Your body leans in. For a brief moment, the world shrinks to the opportunity on the screen. The logical question would be, do I need anything right now? But that question is quiet. The louder internal question is, how do I get this hit? So you browse. You add something to the cart. You complete the purchase. You feel a small, bright sense of completion. For a moment, your inner landscape changes. The dullness lifts. The restlessness settles. The nervous system receives its reward. Then the moment passes. The object arrives days later. It does not deliver the same internal shift. The big event already happened inside your brain when you decided to buy. The rest is packaging. Dopamine misallocated. Reward attached to spending, not to stability. Here is the deeper mechanism. Your brain learns by pairing dopamine with actions. When a behavior consistently leads to a dopamine rise, the brain tags that behavior as valuable, important, worth repeating. You repeat it. The tag strengthens. Over time, the behavior becomes wired into your reward system. Think of the small routines you barely notice. Opening a shopping app when you feel bored. Ordering food when you feel numb. Buying coffee when you feel depleted. Each of these began with a pairing. You felt a state you did not like. You took an action. You felt a bit better. Dopamine marked the sequence. State plus action equals relief. Relief equals repeat. The problem is not that you feel better. The problem is that the reward is attached to the wrong point in the chain. Imagine two different internal circuits. Circuit 1, stress to spend to relief. Circuit 2, stress to save to relief. In most untrained nervous systems, only the first circuit exists. The body has experienced spending as a reliable source of short-term state change. It has never experienced saving that way. When you move money into savings, there might be a quiet sense of virtue, but there is rarely a spike, no bright hit, no noticeable bodily shift. For dopamine, that means not important. So the brain does not flag saving as a behavior to chase. It flags spending. Dopamine has been misallocated. Let me show you this through a real story. A man named Ishan grew up in a household where money was scarce. When his parents finally had a bit extra, they spent it quickly. A meal out, a gift, something visible. Young Ishan's nervous system learned something very clearly. Extra money equals temporary joy. Extra money equals celebration. Extra money equals spending before it disappears. His body remembered the atmosphere on those days, the slight lift in energy, the smiles, the sense of, we got away with it this time. Years later, Ishan earns well. He tells himself he wants to save. He sets goals. But every time his balance rises, he feels an odd, agitated energy. The number is higher than usual. His nervous system does not interpret that as safety. It interprets it as an opportunity window. This is the moment to do something, to treat, to book, to upgrade. If he ignores the feeling, it builds. Restlessness in his hands, mental noise, inner negotiation. If he spends, it drops. His system relaxes, not because the purchase was wise, because the brain has misallocated dopamine to the act of reducing the surplus instead of securing it. Wealth feels wrong to an untrained system. It violates the familiar pattern of tension, then release. Stability removes the drama, and the nervous system is addicted to the drama because the drama is where the chemical spikes live. Here is another version. A woman named Lara decides to create a savings habit. She automates a small monthly transfer into a separate account. The first transfer goes through. She sees the number in the new account. Her reaction is almost flat. A faint, neutral acknowledgement. An hour later, she sees a limited-time sale on a pair of shoes she has been eyeing. Her body reacts instantly. Lightness in her chest. A little rush. A micro-fantasy of how she will look wearing them. One action receives a sharp dopamine curve. The other barely registers. Which behavior do you think her brain will push her toward repeating? It is not about morality. It is about chemistry. Dopamine misallocation is not random. It is reinforced by the environments you move through. Platforms and apps are engineered to pull your reward circuitry. Bright buttons, red notification dots, flashing banners, all crafted to interact with your limbic system, not your prefrontal cortex. Each small purchase is framed as a mini-game. Win the deal, beat the clock, unlock the offer. The win is never about your net worth. It is about the momentary hit. Over time, the nervous system begins to behave like a dog trained to jump for treats. Short jumps, small bites, constant movement, no stillness. Saving, by contrast, is silent. No confetti animation, no push notification, no congratulations banner. Just a number slightly higher than yesterday. The world has built a dopamine-rich environment around spending and a dopamine-empty environment around stability. Your brain responds exactly as designed. The good news is that allocation can shift. Dopamine is not fixed. It is trainable. The nervous system can learn to pair relief and satisfaction with different actions. But the training is not intellectual. It is sensory. Ask a simple question. Which financial behaviors currently feel rewarding in my body, not just correct in my mind? Notice the difference. Correct behaviors live in language. I should save. I should budget. I should invest. Rewarding behaviors live in sensation. That felt good. I want to do that again. For most people, the map looks like this. Saving, correct but flat. Budgeting, correct but heavy. Investing, correct but distant. Spending, risky but rewarding. Scrolling, empty but stimulating. Small treats, expensive but vivid. Your nervous system is not loyal to correctness. It is loyal to vividness, to the actions that change how you feel quickly. If wealth is a trained nervous system, then part of the training is this: making long-term behaviors feel rewarding enough for the body to care. How does that happen without faking excitement? Not by pretending, not by forcing enthusiasm, by adding awareness and micro-reward to actions that currently pass unnoticed. Imagine this sequence the next time you move money into savings. You open the app. Your chest feels slightly tight, a trace of reluctance. You make the transfer anyway. The number moves. Now, instead of closing the app immediately, you pause. You inhale slowly. You exhale longer than you inhaled. You feel for the smallest possible shift in your body. Maybe your shoulders drop a millimeter. Maybe your breath feels less shallow. Maybe there is a tiny sense of rightness. You name it quietly in your mind. This is what safety begins to feel like. You let yourself sit with that for 5 seconds longer than you usually would. You are not forcing happiness. You are simply pairing the action with a moment of conscious regulation. Dopamine does not only respond to fireworks. It also responds to patterns your brain decides to mark as meaningful. When you bring full attention and a small breath of relief to saving, budgeting, or paying down debt, you are teaching your nervous system. This matters. This is reward too. The feeling may be subtle at first, but subtle does not mean ineffective. Training often begins at volumes you can barely hear. Consider another script. Someone pays off a small piece of debt. They click Submit Payment. The number on the screen lowers. Instead of racing past it, they pause. They say, in their own mind, in their own language, a little less weight on my future body. They notice their spine, their jaw, any tiny sense of space. That tiny space becomes the reward. The brain begins to link debt reduction with a bodily lightness instead of just with loss. Over months, that pairing can shift the allocation. The nervous system starts to anticipate relief not only when you spend, but when you secure. There is a reason this matters more than willpower. Willpower is a short-term override. Dopamine allocation is a long-term wiring. You can force yourself to resist a purchase a few times. But if every act of resistance feels like constriction and every act of spending feels like expansion, which pattern do you think will dominate over years? The nervous system will always drift back toward what feels expansive. Training is about making control feel expansive enough to compete. Not euphoric, not ecstatic, just gently relieving. Another layer of misallocation lies in how you celebrate. Most celebrations in modern culture are spending events. Promotions lead to dinners out. Milestones lead to trips. Success leads to visible upgrades. The nervous system learns progress equals consumption. Progress is not marked by reduced stress, increased safety, or quieter nights. It is marked by a new purchase. If every step forward is paired with an outward expenditure, the internal association becomes solid. Good things happen implies we spend. Over time, this can easily convert into, to feel like good things are happening implies we must spend, even when no external milestone has occurred. What happens if celebration is redesigned, not eliminated, redirected? Instead of pairing every positive event with an external cost, what if some victories were paired with internal experiences? An hour in a place your body loves, a slow bath, a walk without your phone, a quiet evening with someone you feel safe with, a stretch of sleep you protect fiercely. The body can learn to experience these as rewards. The nervous system can receive them as evidence of safety and progress, but only if they are treated as important as the purchased treat. Dopamine allocation follows importance, not expense. If you mark inner experiences as significant with your attention, your breath, and your presence, your system can begin to chase them. The false rewards lose some of their edge. Here is a nervous system exercise to begin rewiring allocation. Call it reward reassignment. For the next 7 days, pick one financially healthy behavior you already do, even inconsistently. It could be moving money into savings, paying more than the minimum on a debt, writing down your expenses for the day. Every time you do this behavior, add a 10-second ritual. It could be placing your hand on your chest and feeling 3 slow breaths. Saying one sentence out loud that acknowledges the action, like, "This is me building safety." Sitting with eyes closed for 10 seconds and imagining your future body experiencing less stress because of this one move. The content does not need to be dramatic. The magic is in the pairing. Behavior plus conscious relief equals a new tag in your nervous system. At the end of the week, notice which moments your body actually remembers. Which actions left a small imprint. The goal is not to feel fireworks when you save. The goal is to feel something. Anything that registers as reward instead of only as sacrifice. Dopamine misallocation is not your fault. You did not design the environments, apps, and cultural rituals that trained your nervous system to chase quick hits over quiet safety. But once you see the pattern, it becomes mechanical. The system has been marking spending as important and saving as background noise. Reward reassignment turns up the volume on the actions that keep you safe. Over time, the nervous system can learn to anticipate a different kind of satisfaction. Not the sharp spike of a new purchase, the softer, deeper exhale of knowing your future body will suffer less. False rewards will still whisper, but the real ones will begin to speak too. Chapter 5. The Scarcity Loop. Inside the body, scarcity is usually described in numbers. Not enough income, not enough savings, not enough assets. But before scarcity appears in your bank account, it appears in your nervous system. Scarcity is first a body state, a pattern of contraction, a way your system responds to uncertainty with tension, to possibility with fear, to the future with dread. When that state becomes familiar, your financial life begins to orbit around it. You make decisions that match the feeling inside you. And the feeling is simple. There will not be enough. This is the scarcity loop inside the body. A cycle where internal fear creates external lack, and external lack reinforces internal fear. Picture a scene. A man named Ramesh opens his banking app. He already knows the balance will be low. His shoulders lift toward his ears as the app loads. His jaw tightens. There is a slight sinking in his stomach. The number appears. The sensation spikes, heat in his chest, a small jolt of adrenaline. Thoughts rush in behind the physical wave. It is never enough. I am always behind. I will never catch up. These thoughts seem like reactions to the number, but the body was already in scarcity before the number appeared. The number is just the trigger. In that state, his nervous system shifts into survival mode. The future narrows. Options shrink. The only question that remains is, how do I make this feeling stop? Scarcity in the body has 3 common responses: hoarding, grasping, and giving up. In hoarding, the system clamps down. Every expense feels dangerous. Every opportunity feels like a threat. You stop investing. You avoid decisions. You hold on to whatever you have, even if holding on prevents growth. In grasping, the system lunges. You chase quick money, high-risk schemes, desperate opportunities. Anything that promises a fast exit from the feeling of not enough. In giving up, the system collapses. You stop trying. You spend recklessly. You tell yourself it does not matter. You numb out. You surrender to the loop. All three can exist in the same person, cycling depending on the day, the trigger, the level of exhaustion. The common root is the same, a nervous system that expects lack and tries to manage that expectation with extreme behaviors. Here is the mechanism. Your nervous system encodes experience. If you spent years in a state where money was unpredictable, where surprises were usually bad, where extra did not last, your body learned a lesson. Do not trust stability. Do not trust surplus. Do not trust the future. That lesson is not held as a sentence. It is held as a pattern of activation. The pattern might look like heart rate increase when thinking about bills, tightness in the throat when talking about money, shallow breathing when planning, numbness when facing long-term goals. Because the nervous system expects scarcity, it scans for evidence of it constantly. This is confirmation bias at the level of muscle and hormone. A slight dip in income is registered as catastrophe. A single unexpected expense becomes proof of danger. A modest balance is felt as empty. Under the surface, cortisol flows more often. The sympathetic system stays partially activated. Sleep is affected. Focus is fragmented. Financial decisions are made in this state, not from a place of calm assessment, from a place of embodied threat. Let me show you the loop in slow motion. Step 1. Internal scarcity. The body feels tight. The baseline mood is worry. There is a hum of not enough even when nothing is happening. Step 2. Perception filter. Because the nervous system expects lack, the mind notices every small loss and rarely notices safety. The one bill that is higher, not the 9 that are manageable. The one unexpected cost, not the steady income. Step 3. Action from threat. In this state, the system seeks quick relief. This can look like taking on high-interest debt for short-term breathing room, saying yes to underpaid work out of fear of losing any income, saying no to reasonable opportunities because they feel risky, spending impulsively because the future feels hopeless. Step 4. Real-world scarcity. The actions taken from threat often create actual financial strain. Debt increases, savings do not grow, opportunities are missed, income stagnates. Step 5. Reinforcement. The nervous system uses this external scarcity as proof. See, it really is not enough. The loop tightens. The pattern deepens. The body learns to live in scarcity as its default setting. Let me give you a second real-life fragment. A woman named Hijack received a small bonus at work. On paper, it was a chance to breathe, to start an emergency fund, to pay down a piece of debt. But when the money hit her account, she did not feel safe. She felt unsettled, agitated. The surplus activated her scarcity loop. If I do not use this now, it will disappear. Something bad always happens after good news. She felt a rising pressure to move the money, not carefully, quickly. Within a week it was gone. Small treats, extra outings, a few purchases she had been delaying. When the balance returned to its familiar low level, her body relaxed. The absence of money felt more comfortable than its presence. The loop was not financial, it was neurological. The nervous system had associated more than usual with unsafety. So it pulled her back down to the level it knew how to survive in. This is why external fixes alone do not work. Raises, windfalls, and quick gains fall into the same scarcity pattern. The body drags the numbers back to where its familiarity lives. If poverty is a learned neurological pattern, then scarcity is its internal soundtrack. How does one train out of a scarcity body state? Not by reciting affirmations over fear. Not by pretending to be abundant. By noticing and interrupting the loop at the only place you can actually touch it, in the body. Start with recognition. What does not enough feel like physically for you? Is it chest compression, a pit in the stomach, a buzzing in the head, cold hands, a collapsed posture? You have felt it so many times that it may now be invisible. It defines normal. Take one recent moment when you thought, "I do not have enough." Rewrite it as sensory detail. My shoulders curled forward, my breath stayed high in my chest, my jaw tightened, my belly sank. That is the scarcity loop beginning before any decision, before any action. The goal is not to make the feeling disappear. The goal is to stop acting as if it is absolute truth. There is a subtle difference between "I feel there is not enough" and "there is not enough." The body moves quickly from feeling to fact. Training is the art of leaving a small gap between them. There is a practical nervous system exercise to begin creating that gap. Call it the scarcity scan. Once a day, preferably at a predictable time, open your banking app or look at your numbers. But before you interpret the numbers, scan your body. What happens in the first 3 seconds? Notice without judgment. If your throat tightens, that is the data. If your heart jumps, that is the data. If you feel a wave of heat, that is the data. Do not argue with it. Do not reassure yourself yet. Just register the physical pattern. Then, for the next 10 breaths, lengthen the exhale. Inhale to a comfortable count, maybe 4. Exhale to a slightly longer count, maybe 6 or 7. While you breathe, keep your eyes on the number. Do not look away. Do not distract. You are teaching your nervous system something very specific. I can look at this number and my body can stay connected to calm signals. The number might still be low. The situation might still be hard. But your body is not collapsing into full survival just from seeing it. That is the start of breaking the loop. Because if your body can stay 10% calmer in the presence of the number, your decisions will be 10% less driven by threat. And 10% repeated over years is not small. Here is another layer. Scarcity in the body is often old. It did not begin with your current income. It began with earlier experiences. Maybe as a child you overheard arguments about money, the tone of voice, the slammed doors, the silence afterward. Your body registered money as danger. Not enough money equals fighting. Decisions about money equal pain. The numbers now may be different. But the state your system enters when money appears is the same state from years ago. That state is familiar. And humans, even when suffering, often seek the familiar. Not consciously. Nervously. The scarcity loop inside the body is less about your current bank account and more about your historical map of safety. If money was unstable, safety was unstable. If money was tied to shame, safety was tied to shame. That pattern plays forward. When you try to build stability, a part of your system does not trust it. It waits for the break, the loss, the crisis. So it pre-creates it. Through rushed decisions, through sabotage, through giving up. Better to be right about danger than surprised by it. Recognition of this does not instantly change behavior, but it shifts blame. You are not failing because you are weak. You are repeating because your nervous system is loyal to the only pattern it knows. Loyalty can be redirected, but only with new experiences. Experiences where money appears and is not immediately lost. Experiences where looking at numbers is followed by calm, not conflict. Experiences where more than usual is allowed to remain more for a while. These are nervous system events, not just financial events. Here is a second practical exercise to begin creating them. Call it surplus tolerance. The next time you receive money that feels like extra, a gift, a bonus, a refund, notice what your body does in the first minute. Often there is a spike of restless energy, a compulsion to allocate it instantly. to make plans for it, to move it somewhere. Instead of moving it right away, set a timer for 5 minutes. During those 5 minutes, do nothing with the money. You can sit, walk, stand. But you do not allocate. You do not decide. You do not spend. You simply let your body feel what it feels like to have more than usual for 5 uninterrupted minutes. You might notice agitation, thoughts rushing in. You should do something with this. If you do not decide now, you will lose track. You might also notice a small, unfamiliar sense of space, a moment where nothing is urgent, where the number is higher and nothing bad has happened yet. That 5-minute window is training. You are teaching your nervous system. Surplus is not an immediate threat. It does not need to be discharged as quickly as possible. After the 5 minutes, you can still spend, save, or allocate however you choose. This is not about rules. It is about tolerance. If you repeat this with every surplus event, your capacity to hold more than usual without panic will grow. Scarcity in the body is not only about low, it is about the inability to safely hold high. The loop breaks when the system can experience both without extreme reaction. There is an important distinction here. Scarcity as a feeling is not always lying. Sometimes the numbers are objectively tight. The situation is genuinely hard. Training your nervous system is not about pretending otherwise. It is about preventing the body from collapsing into a state that makes the hard situation even harder. A regulated body can still feel urgency, but the urgency does not dominate. In that regulated urgency, different questions become possible. Instead of, how do I make this feeling stop right now? You might hear, what is the smallest move that improves this by 1%? A loop that once only produced extreme swings begins to allow incremental action. Incremental action is how external scarcity slowly changes. The inside loop shifts first, then the outside numbers follow, not overnight but steadily. Scarcity inside the body is a pattern of contraction your system fell into for understandable reasons. Those reasons mattered. They shaped you. But they do not have to be permanent settings. Every time you breathe through the first wave, look at the number without flinching away. Tolerate surplus for a few minutes longer. You are rewriting the loop, not with slogans, with sensations. With Chapter 6, Identity Sealing and Financial Self-Sabotage. Every nervous system has an invisible ceiling on what feels normal, not what is possible, what is familiar. That ceiling is not written in your bank statements. It is written in your identity. Identity is the quiet sentence your body believes about who you are in relation to money. I am someone who always gets by but never gets ahead. I am someone who cannot handle large sums. I am someone who makes it and then loses it. These are not just thoughts. They are thresholds. When your external reality rises above them, your nervous system begins to pull you back down. This is the identity ceiling. Imagine a thermostat in a room. It is set to 20 degrees. If the temperature rises to 24, the system activates to cool it. If it drops to 16, the system activates to warm it. The goal is not comfort. The goal is sameness. Your identity around money works the same way. If your bank balance drops below what feels normal, you panic. You tighten. You hustle. You cut back. If your bank balance rises above what feels normal, you experience a different kind of discomfort. Restlessness, guilt, unworthiness, agitation. In the first case, you climb back up. In the second case, you climb back down. Either way, you return to the identity set point. Let me show you this through a story. Rahul grew up in a family where money was always tight, but the basics were covered. The sentence he absorbed was simple. We are not poor, but we are not the kind of people who have a lot. As an adult, he earns more than anyone in his family did. His skills are valuable. His income fluctuates but can be high. Yet no matter how much he earns, his end-of-year situation looks similar. Small savings, some debt, no real cushion. One year he has an exceptionally good run. Several projects land. For the first time, he has several months of expenses in the bank. His external reality has risen above his internal identity. At first, there is excitement, pride, a sense of possibility. Then something subtle happens. He begins to feel pressure to be more generous than usual. He picks up more tabs. He agrees to trips. He upgrades things that do not need upgrading. He also procrastinates on sending invoices. He is slower to follow up with clients. Work that would maintain or increase his position feels oddly heavy. Part of him is tired. Part of him is afraid. What if I cannot sustain this? What if this is a fluke? What if they expect this level from me now? The surplus does not feel safe. It feels like a test he is not sure he can pass. Within months, the extra money is gone. The balance returns to his old normal. His nervous system relaxes. The internal sentence breathes out. This feels like me again. From the outside, it looks like self-sabotage. From the inside, it feels like self-correction. The identity ceiling is not malicious. It is loyal. It is trying to keep you in what it knows how to survive. This shows up not only with surpluses but with opportunities. A woman named Farah is offered a promotion, higher pay, more responsibility, more visibility. On paper, it is exactly what she said she wanted. But when the offer arrives, her nervous system reacts. Tightness in her throat, a feeling of being exposed, thoughts she has never said out loud. I am not the kind of person who leads at that level. People like me do not hold those roles. What if they find out I do not belong? These are identity sentences, old, quiet, deeply held. She stalls. She finds reasons the offer is not right. Timing, culture, future plans. She turns it down. Her surface explanation sounds logical. Her nervous system explanation is simple. The position sits above her identity ceiling. Her system will not let her walk into a reality that makes her feel like a fraud. Financial self-sabotage is often identity protection. Your nervous system would rather be right about who you have always been than risk becoming someone new. Because someone new is not just a different title or balance. It is a different body state. More responsibility means more uncertainty. More wealth means more visibility. More stability means more to lose. If your identity is anchored in being the one who struggles, the one who recovers, the one who survives chaos, then calm prosperity can feel strangely empty. Who am I if I am not scrambling? Who am I if there is no crisis? Who am I if I am not fixing something all the time? The nervous system may unconsciously create situations that restore the familiar narrative. A missed payment here, an unnecessary risk there, a decision delayed until it becomes a problem. These are not random errors. They are moves in a game whose goal is to return you to the story your body recognizes. How do identity ceilings form? They form from repeated experiences paired with emotion. Maybe you grew up hearing, "People like us cannot get ahead." Maybe you watched relatives ridicule those who had money. They are greedy. They think they are better. Maybe you saw wealth tied to pain, an inheritance that caused conflict, a business win that cost someone their health. Your system made associations. Wealth equals danger. Success equals isolation. Abundance equals loss. To keep you safe, your nervous system installed a cap. If you approach unfamiliar levels of money or status, warning signals fire. Anxiety, self-doubt, guilt. I do not deserve this. Others need it more. I am leaving people behind. Instead of examining these sentences, you obey them. You spend down. You step back. You decline. You undercharge. You stay small. And the ceiling holds. The goal is not to fight your identity. It is to see it, to bring into awareness the sentences that have been operating silently. There is a simple nervous system exercise to begin revealing your financial identity ceiling. Call it the number test. Choose 3 different monthly income amounts. One that feels like your current normal. One that feels clearly below normal. One that feels clearly above normal. Now, one by one, imagine seeing each amount deposited into your account on the 1st of every month. Do not analyze. Just watch your body. When you imagine the below normal amount, what happens? Maybe a jolt of fear, urgency, a desire to fix it. When you imagine the normal amount, what happens? A shrug, a neutral exhale, a sense of yes, that is about right. When you imagine the above normal amount, what happens? For many, there is not just excitement. There is discomfort, a buzz of agitation. Thoughts like, that would never happen. What would I even do with that? People would expect too much. Underneath, the body might contract, the throat might tighten, the heart rate might speed up. Those reactions mark your ceiling. It is not about the objective size of the number, it is about the sensation it produces. The same exercise can be done with savings. Imagine having 1 week of expenses saved, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year. Where does the nervous system start to push back? That pushback is the ceiling saying, this is not you. Once you see it, what then? Not force, not attack, not shame. Gently expanding what you can mean to your nervous system. Identity is not changed by declarations alone. It shifts when your body has new experiences that do not match the old story, and survives them. Think of a small expansion. Someone who sees themselves as bad with money sets up auto savings and keeps it going for 3 months. Each month that passes without disaster, the nervous system receives data. We did something people like us do not do, and nothing terrible happened. The story trembles slightly, or someone who always undercharges decides to ask for a slightly higher rate. Their body shakes when they send the message. Their stomach flips when they receive a yes. They feel exposed. But they do not die. They are not abandoned. They are not destroyed. A new identity possibility appears. Maybe I am not only the one who takes less. Maybe I can be the one who receives fully. These are identity micro-expansions. The nervous system needs them to rewrite its sense of who you are allowed to be. Another angle is this. Whose financial identity are you unconsciously loyal to? A parent who struggled, a community that distrusted wealth, a sibling who had less? If you surpass them, does some part of you feel like a traitor? Loyalty is a deep nervous system value. It is not just social, it is bodily. If your body believes I must stay at this level to belong, then rising above that level will trigger guilt, anxiety, and pullback. Sometimes the ceiling is not, I am not a person with money. It is, I am not a person who has more than the people I love. Financial self-sabotage then becomes a way to stay connected. To shift this, the body needs a new narrative of belonging. One where you can be resourced and still loyal. One where your stability benefits, not betrays. That might look like small proofs. You save more and still show up for others. You earn more and remain kind. You build security and do not become who they warned you about. Over time, your system can learn that rising does not equal exile. There is a practical identity exercise to begin this. Call it the as someone who script. Take the ceiling sentence you suspect is active. For example, I am someone who always struggles with money. Now write a slightly expanded version, not as a wish, but as a trial identity. I am someone who has struggled with money and is learning to hold more. Sit with that sentence for a minute. Read it slowly once or twice. Notice your body's reaction. Does it tense? Does it soften? Does it resist? You are not trying to convince yourself. You are listening. If the resistance is extreme, shrink the expansion. I am someone who struggles with money and has moments of doing better. Let the nervous system feel the truth in that. The goal is to find an identity statement that stretches you slightly but does not snap you into rejection. Repeat it quietly once a day, not as a mantra you force, but as a possibility you offer your body. Then, when you take even the smallest action that aligns with that expanded identity, a saved amount, a delayed impulse, a clear boundary, you mentally tag it. This is what someone who is learning to hold more does. Over time, the nervous system receives a new pairing. Not just struggle, but effort. Not just chaos, but pockets of control. Not just lack, but small surplus. The ceiling does not vanish overnight, but it moves. Maybe only by a few units at first. But movement is everything. Identity ceilings whisper through self-talk too. Pay attention to the phrases that slip out when you are not watching. It is just money. It comes and goes. I am not like those disciplined people. I always mess this up. These are not jokes. They are programming. Each repetition is a message to your nervous system about what to aim for or avoid. If wealth is a trained nervous system, then identity is the training manual. Most of your manual was written for you, not by you. Childhood experiences, cultural stories, observed patterns. You have been following that manual so long it feels like you. But manuals can be edited, not in one dramatic rewrite, in small marginal notes. I acted broke here, but I am not required to keep doing that. I felt like a fraud here, but I stayed and handled it. I was afraid of more here, but I survived it. Each note is a crack in the ceiling. Self-sabotage begins to look less like moral failure and more like an overprotective system enforcing outdated settings. Seeing it that way does not absolve you of responsibility, but it removes the poison of shame. You are not fighting yourself. You are updating yourself. Old identity, safety through sameness. New identity, safety through capacity, capacity to hold more without collapsing. Capacity to be resourced without abandoning where you came from. Capacity to let your numbers rise without needing to drag them back down just to feel like yourself. The ceiling is not a wall. It is a setting. Settings can change. Chapter 7. Stress, urgency, and bad money decisions. There is a kind of urgency that feels like truth. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts speed up. Every problem seems immediate. Every decision feels like now or never. In that state, the idea of waiting, of pausing, feels dangerous. Most of the worst money decisions are made there. Not in calm reflection. Not with full information. In the compressed tunnel of stress where your nervous system has quietly taken command and your thinking brain has been pushed to the side. Stress is not just a feeling. It is a full-body event. Heart rate shifts. Blood pressure rises. Cortisol and adrenaline move through your blood. Digestion slows. Muscles brace. From the outside, it might look like you are simply worried about money. Inside, your system is preparing for a predator that never appears. The predator is an unpaid bill, a low balance, an uncertain future. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a real physical threat and a psychological financial one. It reacts to both with the same tools. And those tools make thoughtful financial choices almost impossible. Consider a scene. Nikhil receives an email. Final notice. Payment overdue. He had forgotten about the bill. The subject line hits him like a slap. His stomach drops. Heat rushes to his face. His shoulders tense. In an instant, his body shifts into fight or flight. Thoughts rush in. I am irresponsible. This always happens. I need to fix this right now. He does not check his full financial picture. He does not consider options. He does not call to negotiate. The internal urgency is too loud. He reaches for his credit card, pays the bill immediately, adds to a balance already growing. For a moment, his body relaxes. The threat feels like it has been handled. The nervous system calms enough for his prefrontal cortex to come back online. Only then does he remember a cheaper option he could have used, or a different bill that was actually more urgent. But the decision was made under stress. It was not a plan. It was a stress response. Here is the mechanism. Under acute stress, your nervous system activates the sympathetic branch. Fight or flight. In this state, blood flow is prioritized to the parts of you that can help you survive a physical threat. Large muscles, reflex circuits, fast pattern recognition. The slower, more deliberate parts of your brain, especially the prefrontal cortex responsible for planning, weighing trade-offs, and considering the future, receive less blood flow and less glucose. Your brain literally has fewer resources to think clearly. At the same time, stress narrows your attentional field. You see the immediate problem in sharp focus, the bill, the overdraft, the text about money. Everything else blurs. Long-term goals, ongoing plans, alternative options. They fade at the edges. Your nervous system pushes you to pick the fastest path to reducing the immediate discomfort. Not the best path, the fastest one. In financial life, the fastest path often looks like using high-interest credit to create instant relief, taking the first job or client that offers money regardless of terms, ignoring a problem completely because any engagement with it spikes stress. Each of these moves makes sense to a stressed nervous system. It is solving the problem of how you feel in the next hour, not your position in the next year. Urgency amplifies this. Stress says something is wrong. Urgency says if you do not act right now, it will get worse. The two together create a kind of internal alarm siren. You might recognize its scripts. If I do not buy this now, I will miss out. If I do not pay this now, everything will fall apart. If I do not respond instantly, the opportunity will disappear. These sentences rarely come with evidence. They come with sensation. Racing heart, tight chest, shallow breathing. The body feels like an immediate move is required, so you make one. Advertisers and platforms understand this. Limited time offers, only 3 left. Sale ends tonight. These are not just marketing lines, they are nervous system triggers. They create synthetic urgency. They push your stress response button. Once that button is pressed, the quality of your thinking drops. A regulated nervous system can see a timer and still ask, "Do I actually need this?" A stressed nervous system sees the same timer and only experiences, "If I do not act, I lose." In that frame, not buying feels like risk. Buying feels like relief. The money moves accordingly. Let me show you another angle: stress and tunnel vision. Ananya has several financial priorities: rent, groceries, minimum debt payments, savings for an upcoming expense. On a calm day, she could list them, she could rank them, she could plan. On a stressed day, one item takes over the entire screen of her mind. The past due notice, perhaps. Or the embarrassment she feels about owing a friend. In the tunnel, she redirects all available money to that one thing, ignoring the rest. Later, another bill becomes urgent. Another tunnel opens, another rushed decision follows. She is always paying the loudest problem, never the most important one. This is not poor strategy. It is stress strategy. The nervous system measures importance by intensity, not by impact. Whatever triggers the strongest emotional spike is treated as top priority. Without regulation, you mistake intensity for importance. There is another pattern: decision fatigue. Chronic financial stress often means constant small decisions. Do I buy this now or wait? Do I pay this bill in full or partly? Do I transfer from savings or leave it? Each decision under stress drains your mental and emotional energy. By the end of the day, your capacity to resist impulses, think ahead, or tolerate discomfort is low. A late-night purchase, a missed payment, an avoided email. These often happen when decision fatigue is high and stress has not been processed. Your nervous system, depleted, chooses the easiest path. Usually the path of least immediate discomfort. Over time, this path builds long-term discomfort. If stress and urgency distort your money decisions, what can shift? Not eliminating stress. Stress is part of life, especially in difficult financial seasons. The shift is learning to separate stress from action. Most people treat stress as a command. I feel urgent, so I must act now. Regulation training treats stress as a signal. I feel urgent. Something in me believes this is an emergency. Is it? That question only becomes available when the body calms by even a small degree. There is a nervous system exercise that builds this separation. Call it the urgency delay. It is very small by design. The next time you feel you must make a financial decision immediately, insert a 2-minute delay. Not 30 minutes. Not a day. 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, you do not analyze the decision. You do not debate. You do not choose. You only regulate. You might stand up and shake your arms and legs for 30 seconds, then breathe slowly. Place one hand on your chest, one on your belly, and feel 10 full breaths. Look out a window and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear. Simple grounding. You are sending a message to your nervous system. We are allowed 2 minutes. Nothing explodes in 2 minutes. Often you will feel resistance. This is urgent. I do not have time for this. That thought is part of the stress pattern. 2 minutes will not ruin a truly good decision. It will often save you from a bad one. When the 2 minutes end, revisit the decision. Sometimes you will still act quickly. Other times, the slight reduction in activation will open questions that were invisible in the peak. Do I actually want this? Is there a cheaper option? Is this the real emergency? 2 minutes does not sound like much, but it is enough time for stress hormones to begin to shift, enough time for your prefrontal cortex to get a bit more fuel. Over time, your system learns feeling urgent does not equal being forced to act immediately. The internal wiring begins to decouple. Stress and urgency are not only triggered by external events, they are also triggered by internal narratives. I am so behind. Everyone else has it figured out. It is too late. These sentences create pressure. Pressure compresses time. If it is too late, every decision feels like the last chance. Last chance decisions are rarely thoughtful. If financial failure is framed as moral failure, the stakes feel even higher. A mistake is not just a mistake. It is proof you are broken. Under that frame, your nervous system moves from stress to shame. Shame is another form of urgent threat. It hurts. The urge to escape it is strong. Escape often looks like numbing, scrolling, buying, ignoring. Each provides a small break from the feeling of being the one who always messes up. But that break is temporary. The situation worsens, the shame deepens, the loop tightens. If failure is conditioning, not moral weakness, then each stressed, urgent decision is not proof of who you are. It is proof of how you were wired. Wiring can change, but only when you stop treating every moment as a referendum on your worth. Instead, each moment becomes data. When I feel this kind of urgency, I rush into high-interest options. When I am this tired, I avoid opening bills. When I receive news about money at night, I make worse decisions than in the morning. These are nervous system patterns, not character judgments. Knowing them lets you design around them. For instance, you might create a personal rule. I do not make new financial decisions after 9 p.m. Not because you are weak. Because you know your system is more compromised then. Or I do not respond to money-related messages until I have taken 5 breaths. not because you are indifferent, because you know your first reaction is the most stress-driven. These are not restrictions meant to punish. They are guardrails meant to protect a nervous system that runs hot around money. Stress will still come. Urgency will still whisper. But decisions made from a slightly more regulated state compound differently. A few less rushed credit choices. A few more moments of checking the full picture before reacting. A few fewer avoidance moves when a small step could be taken. Over months and years, these differences become visible in the numbers. Money obeys the nervous system that makes the decisions. When that system is constantly in emergency mode, money is shuffled around in emergency patterns. Fast, reactive, short-sighted. When that system learns to step out of emergency, even briefly, money begins to follow calmer patterns, slower, clearer, and slightly more aligned with the future. Stress will still visit. Urgency will still knock. The question slowly changes from, how do I get rid of this feeling right now? To, can I feel this and still choose the next small, sane move? That shift is where bad money decisions begin to lose their grip. Chapter 8. Training. Calm under financial pressure. Calm is often imagined as the absence of pressure. Quiet days, no bills due, a healthy balance. But for most people, those conditions do not arrive first. Pressure arrives first. Calm, if it ever comes, has to be built under load. Financial pressure is not just numbers on a page. It is a full physiological experience. Tight muscles, shallow breathing, a sense of being cornered, the mind racing ahead to worst-case scenarios. In that state, money becomes an amplifier of fear instead of a tool of control. Training calm under pressure does not mean waiting for life to become easier. It means teaching your nervous system to stay more regulated while the numbers are still imperfect, the bills are still present, and the future is still uncertain. This is not a personality trait. It is a capacity. Consider a scene. Two people receive the same news. An unexpected expense equal to half their monthly income. Both feel an immediate hit. The first person's chest constricts. The inner voice shouts, "This is a disaster." Thoughts spiral. "I will never get ahead. Everything is collapsing." Sleep that night is shallow. The next day they make a panicked move, taking on expensive debt to cover the amount without looking for alternatives. The second person's body reacts too. A jolt in the stomach, a rush of heat. But then something subtle happens. They pause. They feel their feet on the ground. They take a few slower breaths. The inner voice still has concerns, but another voice appears alongside it. This is serious, but not the end. What are the actual options? The external problem is the same. The internal capacity is different. The difference is not intelligence, it is training. The second nervous system has learned something the first has not: how to create a little space between pressure and panic. That space is where better decisions live. Here is the mechanism. Your nervous system constantly evaluates whether you are safe or under threat. Financial signals, bills, balances, deadlines are interpreted through this lens. Without training, the system treats many neutral or manageable events as full threats. Every unexpected bill feels like catastrophe. Every low balance feels like doom. The stress response activates fully. Fight, flight, or freeze. Training calm is not about convincing yourself everything is fine when it is not. It is about teaching your system to respond proportionally instead of maximally to financial signals. A proportionate response might sound like, "This is hard, and I have choices." A maximal response sounds like, "This is impossible, and I am trapped." The first creates room for action. The second shuts action down. How does a nervous system learn proportion? Not by lectures, by experiences where pressure rises and is tolerated without immediate reactive behavior. Small, repeated experiences. Think of physical training. If someone has never trained, asking them to hold a heavy weight for a long time is overwhelming. Their muscles shake, their breath shortens, they drop it quickly. Over weeks of training with slightly lighter loads, their capacity increases. The same weight that once felt impossible becomes manageable. The weight did not change. Their nervous system and muscular system adapted. Financial calm under pressure works the same way. You cannot start by expecting stillness in the face of a crisis. You start with smaller loads and train your system to stay connected when it wants to disconnect. Begin by understanding your own pressure signature. How does your body respond to financial stress in the first 3 seconds? For some, it is a spike, sudden intensity, heat, racing mind. For others, it is a drop, numbness, fog, dissociation. Both are forms of dysregulation. If you tend toward spike, training calm means learning to soften activation without collapsing. If you tend toward drop, training calm means learning to stay present without disappearing. Let us take the spike pattern. A man named Adil opens an email about an unexpected tax bill. His body reacts with an immediate jolt. Urgency floods him. The urge to do something, anything, is strong. In the past, that urge led to frantic borrowing or avoidance. This time, he has practiced a small protocol. He closes his eyes for 10 seconds. He places one hand on his chest, one on his belly. He feels his breath without trying to change it yet. He says quietly, in his mind, "There is a problem. I am allowed 10 seconds. 10 seconds is not long. It does not make the bill disappear, but it interrupts the complete fusion of pressure and immediate reaction." In those 10 seconds, his nervous system receives a new message. We can feel this, and we do not have to explode into action. After the 10 seconds, he might still feel intense. But the intensity is one notch lower. That one notch is the difference between grabbing the worst available solution and being able to consider 2 or 3 options. This is training. It looks small, it is not. Or consider the drop pattern. A woman named Syra sees her balance after several automatic debits. The number is lower than she expected. Instead of spiking, she goes flat. Her mind fuzzes. Her instinct is to close the app and pretend she did not see it. Her training begins with the opposite of what she wants to do: staying. She keeps the app open for 30 seconds. During that time, she allows herself to feel the numbness. She names it. I feel far away. My body is checking out. She does not force engagement with the problem yet. She simply keeps her eyes on the number while noticing her impulse to dissociate. The training is not to immediately strategize. It is to remain present in the room where the numbers live. Over time, those 30 seconds of presence begin to grow. She can stay with discomfort slightly longer. Eventually, she can add small actions, writing down the number, noting upcoming debits without fully abandoning herself. This is calm at a deep level, not the absence of feeling, the capacity to feel without splitting. Training calm under pressure also means changing your relationship with time. Untrained nervous systems compress time under stress. Everything feels like now. Every problem feels like it must be solved today. Every decision feels final. In that compressed timeline, complex thinking is impossible. The mind grabs whatever answer reduces the sense of urgency. A regulated nervous system learns to stretch time just enough to think, not endlessly, just enough. Instead of, I must fix all of this immediately. It shifts toward, what can move one piece of this today? The pressure remains. The time horizon widens. You can begin practicing this even with small pressures. A minor, unexpected expense appears. Instead of asking, how do I fix my whole financial life right now? You ask, what is the next smallest concrete step that improves this by 1 degree? That might be listing the actual amount and date due. checking what cash is available, sending one message to ask a question or request an extension. The nervous system learns to associate pressure with specific actions, not with global panic. Another tool for training calm is pre-deciding. When stress is high, decision-making capacity drops. One way to support your nervous system is to remove some decisions from the moment. Pre-deciding might look like, if I receive an unexpected bill, I will not respond for at least 1 hour. Do a 5-minute regulation practice. Look at all upcoming expenses before taking any action. If my income drops suddenly, I will reduce specific discretionary categories by a small, pre-chosen percentage. Tell one trusted person instead of hiding completely. Avoid using new credit for 24 hours while I explore options. These are not commands. They are agreements you make with yourself in a calm state to support yourself in a stressed state. The nervous system loves predictability. Pre-decisions provide a sense of structure when everything feels chaotic. They also reduce the load on your future, stressed self. Instead of having to invent a plan under pressure, you follow a pattern you designed earlier. Nervous system training is also about environment. If every interaction with money happens in a state of collapse, late at night when you are exhausted, surrounded by clutter, in a posture of defeat, your system will associate money with that entire sensory context. You can shift this. Choose a small, consistent money space, not necessarily a special room. Maybe a cleared corner of a table, a particular chair, a time of day when your energy is not at its lowest. When you go there, do small, manageable money tasks, checking balances, logging expenses, planning the next few days. Over time, your body will begin to associate that space and time with focused, tolerable engagement instead of last-minute panic. The external environment becomes part of your regulation toolkit. There is a simple nervous system exercise to consolidate this training. Call it the pressure rehearsal. Once a week, deliberately expose yourself to a small dose of financial pressure in a controlled way. This could be looking at all your upcoming bills for the next 2 weeks in one sitting, estimating your total debt and writing the number down, reviewing a month of past expenses. Before you begin, set a container. I will do this for 10 minutes. During these 10 minutes, I expect my body to react. That is the point. As you go through the material, notice your physical reactions. Tightness, heat, numbness, restlessness. You are not trying to stop them. You are observing them like a trainer watching an athlete exert. When the 10 minutes end, stop. Even if you feel like you should keep going. You are sending another message to your nervous system. We can enter financial pressure for a set time and exit it deliberately. We are not trapped there indefinitely. If you do this every week, your system begins to understand that money pressure is a state you can visit and leave, not a permanent prison. The next time real pressure arrives unexpectedly, it will feel less like entering an unknown battlefield and more like stepping into terrain you have practiced crossing. Calm under financial pressure does not mean you do not care. It means you care without dissolving. It means your body can endure the sensation of incomplete resolution, bills not yet paid, plans not yet clear, without forcing you into the fastest, worst solution just to escape discomfort. In that calm, even partial calm, you gain access to parts of yourself that are invisible in panic. Humor, creativity, resourcefulness, the ability to ask for help clearly. The patience to let a solution unfold in steps rather than in one desperate leap. If wealth is a trained nervous system, then one of its core skills is this: staying steady enough in the storm to steer even a little instead of just being thrown. Money will continue to press on your system. Life will continue to deliver surprises. Calm is not the removal of that weight. It is the strength built slowly to carry it without collapsing. Chapter 9. Installing financial control. Without motivation, most people wait to feel different before they act differently with money. They wait for motivation, for a surge of resolve, for a fresh start feeling, for the right mood, the right month, the right moment. That moment rarely comes. Or it comes briefly, burns bright for a few days, and disappears. The behavior disappears with it. If your financial control depends on motivation, your financial life will always be unstable. Because motivation is a nervous system state. It rises and falls. It is influenced by sleep, stress, hormones, and 100 invisible variables. Control that lasts is not built on how you feel. It is built on what happens even when you do not feel like it. This is where nervous system design matters more than willpower. Imagine two different systems. In the first, everything depends on daily decisions. Should I save today? Should I track this expense? Should I look at my balance? In the second, many decisions are made once and embedded into the environment. Money moves automatically. Tracking is triggered by cues. Review happens at a scheduled time, not when stress spikes. The first system demands constant motivation. The second system requires almost none. Your nervous system is already doing this in other areas. You do not feel motivated every day to brush your teeth. But you still do it mostly. Not because of high willpower, because the behavior is attached to cues, waking, bedtime, and reinforced by mild discomfort when you skip it. You do not negotiate with yourself every time. You simply move. Financial control can be installed the same way, through cues, automation, and low-friction behaviors that do not ask for emotional permission. The obstacle is that money is loaded. Brushing your teeth does not usually trigger shame, fear, or old stories. Money does. So the first step is not building complex systems, it is shrinking the emotional charge around basic actions. One way to do this is by making the actions small enough that your nervous system does not perceive them as a threat. Think of what getting control of my finances might feel like in your body when you say it. Heavy, overwhelming, exhausting. Your shoulders may slump just thinking about it. The phrase is too large. It triggers too much. Your system anticipates failure or fatigue before you even begin. But what about write down what I spent today? Or look at my balance for 15 seconds? Or move a tiny amount of money into savings? These are small enough that your system may not light up as strongly. The nervous system is more willing to tolerate small, predictable discomfort than large, vague ones. Installing control without motivation starts with defining control as a series of small, repeatable actions instead of a big identity shift. Let us look at some of those actions. 1. Automatic movement of money. Automation is often talked about as a convenience. Here it is more than that. It is a nervous system bypass. When money moves without you having to choose each time, it does not trigger the same internal debate. Should I really save this? What if I need it? Do I deserve to keep it? The transfer happens, the story shrinks, but even setting up automation can trigger resistance. There is a way to respect that. Instead of starting with a big percentage, start with something almost insultingly small. An amount your nervous system barely registers as loss. If you earn 1,000, maybe you start with 5 or 10. Not as a good savings plan, but as a signal to your nervous system. Money can leave the checking account and nothing catastrophic happens. Once that pattern exists, you can increase the amount in small increments. Each increase is not a fresh negotiation. It is a slight adjustment to an existing pattern. The point is not the number at first. It is the existence of a non-negotiable behavior that does not ask every month, do you feel motivated to save? It simply saves. 2. Fixed review points. Many people only engage deeply with their money when there is a problem, a bounced payment, a scary letter, a rejected card. These events spike the nervous system and create a strong association. Money equals crisis. To install control, you need associations where money equals routine. One way is to decide on a single, small, recurring review ritual that happens regardless of crisis. For example, every Sunday at 6 p.m., I open my banking app, look at each account balance, and write 3 numbers on a piece of paper. Total checking, total savings, total debt. That is it. No full budget, no deep analysis, just numbers on paper once a week. At first, this might still feel edgy. Your body might tense before the ritual. You might want to skip it, but over weeks, if you keep the ritual short and predictable, your nervous system begins to file it under things we do, rather than things we fear. You are installing a pattern. I look at my money even when there is no immediate fire. Control starts with seeing, not fixing. 3. Logging, not judging. Detailed budgets can be useful, but they are high friction for many nervous systems, especially those already stressed. A simpler entry point into control is pure logging. Every time you spend, you write it down, not in a perfect app, not with categories, just date, amount, what it was, no commentary. Logging is not about restriction at first. It is about establishing a relationship of attention without immediate punishment. Your nervous system is used to 2 modes, ignore or panic. Logging introduces a third, observe. This can be done in a small notebook or a simple note on your phone. The key is to keep the act tiny. You buy something. Before you move on, you jot it down. No analysis. At the end of a week, the list itself is control. It is a record. That record begins to alter your sense of reality. I do not know where my money goes begins to shift into I see where some of it goes. Over time, seeing patterns may nudge you toward changes, but the control was already present in the act of observing. 4. Designing friction in the right places. Motivation is often needed when something is easy to start and hard to stop. Online shopping is easy to start. One tap, one search, one ad, harder to stop. If control relies on you resisting the easiest path in your environment, you will lose often, especially on tired days. Instead, you can adjust the environment so that some actions require more effort. Deleting your card details from shopping sites. Turning off one-click purchasing. Removing shopping apps from your home screen. Placing your credit card in a physically less accessible place, or not carrying it daily. These are small structural changes. They do not require you to be constantly vigilant. They simply mean that when an impulse arises, there are a few more steps between the impulse and the action. Those steps create space. Space allows your more thoughtful brain parts to catch up. Installing friction is a way of lowering the motivation required for control. You do not need to be at your best to make a better choice. You just need the easy path to be slightly less easy. 5. Pre-written scripts. When under stress, your nervous system struggles to generate calm language. Your inner voice may become harsh, catastrophic, or numb. In that state, making calls, sending emails, or asking questions about money becomes extremely hard. So you avoid, delay, freeze. One way to reduce the motivation needed to engage is to prepare scripts when you are calm. Short, simple sentences you can use when communicating about money. For example, to a service provider. I saw the bill is higher than expected. Can you walk me through the charges? To a creditor. I want to pay this, but the current amount is difficult. What options are available? To yourself, when opening a bill. I am going to look at this number. I do not have to fix everything right now. These scripts are not magic, but they lower the activation energy for engagement. Instead of having to invent words in a stressed moment, you follow something already written. Control is partly about being willing to stay in the conversation. Scripts help your nervous system enter that conversation with less resistance. 6. Separating identity from action. Motivation drops sharply when every financial move feels like a test of who you are. If checking your balance becomes, "Let us see how much of a failure I am today," your system will avoid. If logging a purchase becomes, "Here is proof I am irresponsible," your system will resist. Installing control means moving from identity-based thinking to mechanic-based thinking. Not, "I am bad with money, but my system has been untrained so far." Not, "I always ruin everything, but this is a pattern my nervous system learned." Patterns can be repatterned. When you catch identity sentences, you can quietly translate them. "I am so stupid with money" becomes, "My body is overwhelmed around money." This shift may feel small, but it matters. Your nervous system is more willing to approach a mechanical problem than a moral one. Control feels more possible when the task is, adjust a pattern, not fix a broken person. 7. Micro-commitments instead of grand declarations. "I will change everything about my finances this year" sounds inspiring in January and crushing in March. Your nervous system hears grand declarations and anticipates the effort required. If your history is full of broken big promises, those declarations also trigger memories of failure. Motivation burns brightly for a moment, then collapses under the weight of expectation. Instead, control can be installed brick by brick. A micro-commitment is something so small that its main purpose is to be kept. For instance, "For the next 7 days, I will write down at least one thing I spent money on each day." Or, "Every Monday for the next month, I will look at my account balances and write them in the same place." When you keep a micro-commitment, your nervous system experiences something unusual: consistency. Consistency, even on a small scale, begins to shift your self-image, not from "I am great with money," but from "I never follow through" to "sometimes I can follow through." That "sometimes" can expand. Control is less about heroic effort and more about gently increasing the percentage of times you follow your own small agreements. 8. Giving your nervous system proof. Words alone rarely convince a stressed system. It does not believe, "I can handle money differently," just because you say it. It believes what it experiences. So one key piece of installing control is noticing and naming small evidence of change. If you delay one impulse purchase by 5 minutes, that is evidence. If you log one day of expenses, that is evidence. If you look at a bill without closing the app instantly, that is evidence. Most people discount these as meaningless. What they notice and replay are the moments they did not control themselves. Their nervous system feeds on failure images. But if quietly you begin to highlight even the smallest instances of control, you are feeding your system a different diet. "Yesterday I felt the urge to buy something and I waited 1 minute before acting. I have never done that before." This is not self-congratulation. It is data. Control grows where evidence lives. Motivation tries to pull you forward with emotion. Evidence allows your nervous system to relax into new behavior because it has seen itself do it, even once. 9. Accepting flat days. There will be days when you feel nothing. No drive, no hope, no emotional energy for change. Old patterns tend to take over on those days. If your version of control requires you to be emotionally engaged, those flat days will erase progress. Installing control without motivation means designing for flatness. On flat days, your automatic transfers still run. On flat days, your basic logging still happens even if you do not care. On flat days, your money review ritual still occurs even if you feel blank. The actions become the spine you move along when emotion is absent. In this way, control becomes more like hygiene. You do not wait to feel inspired to do it. You do it because it is the infrastructure of your life. It carries you when you cannot carry yourself. Wealth as a trained nervous system is not glamorous. It is built in these small, almost boring moves. Automation that runs even when you are tired. Rituals that happen even when you are discouraged. Scripts that guide you when you are scared. Friction that protects you when you are impulsive. Seeing your own small successes when you are inclined to only see your failures. Motivation will still visit. There will be days when you feel fired up. On those days, you can do more, decide more, build more. But your financial stability cannot depend on those visits. It has to rest on patterns that function even when all you can manage is the minimum. Control without motivation is not cold, it is kind. It does not ask your nervous system to be in peak state to do basic things. It assumes there will be stress, flatness, distraction, and fear. And it builds structures that still move money, record reality, and keep you in relationship with your finances anyway. In time, that very reliability becomes a new kind of motivation, not a surge, a quiet trust, the trust of a nervous system that has seen itself keep small promises over and over again. Money obeys that kind of system, because that kind of system does not disappear when feeling does. Chapter 10. From Reactive Survival to Regulated Wealth. For most of your life, money has arrived into a nervous system trained for survival. It has landed in a body that expects crisis, feels scarcity, chases quick relief, and doubts its right to hold more than just enough. In that state, every financial move is reactive. A bill appears, react. A balance drops, react. An impulse rises, react. An opportunity shows up, react. Reaction is fast, it is loud, it feels necessary, but it rarely builds anything stable. Regulated wealth is different. Regulated wealth is not just a high balance or a long-term plan. It is a way of relating to money where your nervous system is not constantly being yanked into threat, shame, or urgency. It is a state where financial signals still matter, but they do not own you. They arrive, you feel them. You respond with a mix of emotion and structure, not from pure impulse or collapse. To understand this shift, it helps to see the two modes clearly. Reactive survival treats money as a wave that keeps knocking you over. Regulated wealth treats money as a current you can gradually learn to swim in even when it is rough. In reactive survival mode, your inner landscape around money might sound like this. I never know what is happening until it is too late. I fix one thing and something else breaks. I get ahead a little and then it all disappears. I cannot handle looking at it. I make decisions that make no sense to me later. These are the words of a nervous system overwhelmed by financial input. It experiences money as a series of shocks, unexpected charges, sudden drops, urgent demands. Each shock triggers old patterns: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fight, rage at yourself, at others, at the system. Flight, avoidance, distraction, pretending it is not happening. Freeze, paralysis, staring at numbers without being able to act. Fawn, overgiving, undercharging, saying yes to others' needs at your own expense to keep peace. You may recognize yourself in more than one. Regulated wealth does not mean these reactions vanish. It means they no longer have exclusive control. Instead, another layer comes online, a regulating layer that can feel all of this and still orient toward what matters. In regulated wealth mode, the inner landscape begins to include different sentences. This is uncomfortable, and I have handled uncomfortable things before. I can look at this number without deciding everything about my future right now. I feel the urge to fix this instantly, and I can also give myself one day to think. I do not have to punish myself to change a pattern. These are not affirmations pasted over panic. They are the voice of a nervous system that has been through many small regulation exercises and emerged intact. How does one move from reactive survival to this different relationship? Not by a single decision, by hundreds of small ones. Patterns you have been practicing quietly in previous chapters begin to intersect, pausing for 30 seconds before obeying an impulse, breathing for a minute before responding to a bill, looking at numbers weekly, even when nothing is on fire, tolerating the feeling of surplus without immediately discharging it, noticing identity sentences and loosening their grip, creating tiny, repeatable structures that move money without asking your mood for permission. Each of these is a thread. Alone, each thread might seem fragile. Together, over time, they weave a new baseline. The baseline of reactive survival is, I am at the mercy of whatever happens. The baseline of regulated wealth becomes, whatever happens, I still have moves. Those moves might be small at first. A single email, a single call, a single postponed purchase, a single tracked expense. To a nervous system used to being overwhelmed, even these are huge. Think of someone learning to stand upright and moving water after years of being dragged by the current. At first, every slight shift feels like a threat. But as their legs and core strengthen, they realize the water is still strong, but so am I. Regulated wealth is the nervous system equivalent of that strength. External events, job loss, medical bills, economic changes can still hit hard. This is not a story where training makes you invincible or guarantees riches. It is a story where training means that even when you are knocked down, you can find the ground faster. You can orient, you can decide, you can protect something instead of losing everything to panic. Another piece of the transition is grief. Grief for the years spent in patterns your nervous system did not know how to exit. Grief for money that left not because you were irresponsible, but because your body was trying to stay alive in the only way it knew. Grief for opportunities declined, for stability sabotaged, for soft calm that never got a chance to grow. This grief is not self-pity, it is acknowledgement. Your system did what it could under the conditions it knew. It used money as a painkiller, as a shield, as a brief portal out of states it could not tolerate. Seeing that allows something to soften. If you are not a villain in your own financial story, you are allowed to become a student instead. Students can learn. Reactive survival often rests on the belief, this is just how I am. Regulated wealth rests on the belief, this is how I have been wired so far. So far leaves the door open, training calm under pressure, delaying impulses, tolerating scarcity feelings without obeying them, raising identity ceilings in small increments. Each is a training session. The cumulative effect is subtle. At first, you may only notice that your worst decisions happen a little less often. Then that you recover from mistakes faster. Then that you can hold on to modest surplus for longer without dismantling it. Then, over a longer period, the numbers themselves begin to reflect the internal shift. Less high-interest debt, more consistent saving. Fewer emergencies created by avoidance, more capacity to use opportunities when they appear, instead of shrinking from them in fear. This is how wealth begins to grow quietly in the background of a nervous system that is learning not to explode every time money knocks on the door. There is a final exercise that brings this together. Call it the nervous system ledger. For 1 week, keep 2 parallel logs. On one side, you log your visible financial actions. Paid this bill, delayed this purchase, took on this cost, moved this amount to savings. On the other side, you log nervous system moments connected to money. Felt tightness in chest when opening banking app, stayed anyway for 20 seconds. Wanted to buy something impulsively, waited 1 minute before deciding. Received a bill, went for a short walk before paying. Noticed shame after spending, changed self-talk from I am horrible to my body was seeking relief. At the end of the week, look at both columns together. You will see that every external move had an internal layer. Money was never just numbers. It was breath, muscle, heart rate, self-talk, impulses, pauses. Seeing this on paper closes an important gap. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me that I do this with money?" and start asking, "What is happening in my system before I do this with money?" That is the question of a person moving out of reactive survival and into regulated wealth. It is not a question about blame. It is a question about mechanics. Mechanics can be adjusted. In the end, wealth as a trained nervous system is not just about accumulating resources. It is about changing the kind of nervous system that holds them. A system that does not shatter under pressure. A system that does not need to destroy safety to feel alive. A system that can experience both not yet and more than before without losing its center. Money in that context stops being only a source of fear or fleeing. It becomes what it always could have been, a tool. A tool you direct slowly toward a life where your body is not in constant war with your bank account. A life where you can feel the natural tensions of being human, uncertainty, desire, responsibility, without handing every decision to the most frightened parts of your brain. You may never love every interaction with money. You may still feel old patterns stir when certain numbers appear. But you will have something you perhaps did not have before. A nervous system that knows how to stay, how to breathe, how to pause, how to choose. From the outside, that may look like simple financial maturity. From the inside, it will feel like this. Less chaos, more ground, less compulsion, more choice, less survival, more space. That space is where regulated wealth lives, not just in the numbers, in the body that can finally hold them. If this audiobook has brought you clarity, strength, or peace, consider supporting the channel so more people can find this message. Please like this audio and subscribe. Your support helps this work reach those who feel overwhelmed, anxious, or unprotected, and gives them a path back to calm, confidence, and emotional freedom. Thank you for listening. Stay grounded. Stay wise. You are the anchor in every storm.